In this video, we're talking about the post-interview etiquette that you need to follow in order to maximize the results of your podcast interview. If you've spent your hour going on someone else's show, you want to make sure that you are capitalizing on this opportunity. And there are a few things that I think you need to be aware of in how to behave after the interview. So, immediately after the recording interview finishes, you want to make sure that you are available and around to just check in with the host that everything went well, that they are happy, that they're satisfied with the answers that you gave. I would ask them, was that what they wanted? Was the audio quality okay? Are they satisfied? I would also use this as an opportunity to ask them if there's anything else you can do for them. Make sure that in this opportunity, in this post interview chat, you thank them, that you show them your gratitude for allowing them to go in front of their audience. Because as I've said before, they are the ones investing time, effort, energy, and finance into helping you to build your own audience. So be grateful. Ask them what you can do to help them. Now, this might be that you could bring them in to be a guest expert in your community. This might be that you could recommend someone to be a guest on their show or recommend another podcast where they would be a valid guest. This might be that you ask them to be on your show. What can you do in exchange for them as a way to say thank you? You cannot underestimate the value of this offer to help them in some way, be it today or somewhere down the line. Again, this is where that return on investment through the relationship with the host really does come into its own. Make sure that you are available to stay for a chat within that hour that's been booked of your time, but do not overstay your welcome. Make it clear that you are ready to wrap up, that you've been satisfied, and that you're willing to do what it takes to help them get this show out there, to get this particular interview out there. What I would say is that the post interview promotion begins right here. So, if you've had an opportunity to, if you've got a snapshot of you both doing the interview, then promote that then. You want to make sure that you're building up anticipation and excitement about the fact you have been a guest on this host's show. Tag them in your social media, tag them in the stories, say what you enjoyed about that interview, what's different about their show. Give them lots of love, give them lots of attention, because they are going to feel much more reassured that you are going to help get this episode out there. And believe me, as a host, I am always aware of the people who go the extra mile to share the interview that they've been on. Conversely, I'm also really aware of people who don't do anything or very little to promote their own interview. After you have done that and you have tagged them into the social media that you're putting out there, I would email them a quick note of thanks. And if you have any suggestions here as to who would be a great guest on their show, or conversely, if you could put them in contact with somebody who hosts their show that would be useful to them, then let them know that in the email. When the podcast interview goes live, they may well have sent you an email with all of the details. It depends how organized they are as a podcast host. It might be that the first you know about the date of release is the fact that you get tagged on social media. When that happens, make sure that you share those posts, that you put them on your stories on Facebook, on Instagram, that you put them on LinkedIn, that you are tagging inappropriate people. Do what you need to do to get it out there. As I said, this relationship with the host really matters, and they will remember who has gone the extra mile for them. Go and listen to that episode. Go and listen to it as a listener. Put yourself on the other side of the fence. What have you heard? What are the takeaways? How did you feel listening back to what you've discussed? There are several reasons for this. It gives you the ability to share a post or a live video about that experience of listening. It also gives you an opportunity to write a review of what it was like to be on that show. Plus, in terms of that currency for podcasters, they value downloads, ratings, and reviews. So that if you are actually listening and downloading that episode, then you are helping get that episode out there. Leave a review if you haven't done it already. Leave a review for them to say that you absolutely love being a guest and what a professional host they are, what a great show that they have, and make sure that your name is in that review. I would highly recommend that you go over to LinkedIn and give them and their podcast a recommendation. Because once you've done that over there on LinkedIn, you are giving their podcast that stamp of authority, that stamp of professionalism. And they are then able to use that recommendation across their own social media. So again, without being prompted, without being asked, you are giving extra value. And let's talk a little bit about how you can repurpose the interview that you've been on. You would have to get permission from the host, because usually you have given the rights to that voice audio, that voice recording to them. But most of the time, they're going to be very happy for you to share far and wide the episode that you've created with them. So you could think about repurposing this by creating an audiogram through Headliner. There is a Headliner training in the Grow section of the podcast membership, so you could go and check out how to do that. Normally, it would be a 1-minute video with a waveform where you can see that the vocal track running, that you can make a nice picture and put your own branding on and the host's branding. So again, you can make that go further. You can get it on your stories, your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn. You can also then put it onto a blog post on your own website so that you are directing people there. Again, if you are building up a page on your website that has lots of media interviews, then you are giving yourself much more value, and that's very useful for you in terms of positioning. Again, you can get lots of search engine optimization around this. One of the best ways to increase the results you get as a podcast guest is to invite the host back on your show. So if you haven't got a podcast yet, consider getting one out into the world. You are in the right place to make that happen. If you have your own podcast, you are going to have much more authority, much more credibility, and you can give something back to that host. When you do that and they are a guest on your show, in the show notes and in the interview itself, you can mention their interview that you did on their show. And again, you can ask that they, in their show notes, now put a link to your new show. So again, it just makes that message go that little bit further. Everybody likes to be invited back on a show, so why not do that? And what I see can be quite successful is if you've been a guest on someone else's show and then maybe they come on yours, it's likely that somewhere down the line, in maybe 6 to 12 to 18 months, they will invite you back on for a follow-up interview. If you have been that person who has gone the extra mile, if you've had a great engaging interview, if you've delivered massive value, if you have gone the extra mile to promote their show in the first place. I've said this before, and I'm just going to cover it one last time. Your greatest return on investment is with your relationship with the hosts that you are interviewed by, and how you develop and nurture that high level possibility of networking. I cannot stress how many times joint ventures are started in this way: collaborations, referrals, and recommendations. It's a great way to position yourself. So think about the relationship with the host as being primary. And if anybody then does come into your profit pathway, who does then join your lead magnet, who does then come into your nurture sequence and then sign up to work with you, that is the cherry on the top. But these things work together. And I want to mention that this is a long-term strategy. It is not a question of going on a couple of shows or a handful of shows and expecting that all of a sudden you've got loads and loads of sales and loads of business. This is something that has a snowball effect when you are consistently getting on other people's podcasts. Listeners will follow you from one show to the next. They will come into your world. They will sign up for those lead magnets, but they often need to hear you again and again. So yes, you can make each individual episode and interview work for you, but the more you do, the more you get out there, the better you will become and the better results you will get. So I want you to think about your commitment to appearing on podcasts and decide what that looks like for you. How many shows do you want to be on a week? How many shows do you want to be on a month? How many extra people, how many tens of thousands of people do you want to be reaching per week, per month, per year? because with podcasts, you can reach that number of people if you are committed and take action to connecting with the right hosts. When you are launching something or about to launch something, such as a new offer, or a book, or your own podcast, you want to accelerate and increase the amount of interviews you give in a short window of time. When I was launching my book, my first book, Get Visible, I increased my guesting to approximately 30 shows in just under 30 days. It was really intense, but I got the results for my book as a result of that period of getting on shows. And it wasn't that all of those shows were going out in that 30-day period, because you cannot, as a guest, control when those shows are put out into the world. But that meant that over a 3 or 4 month period, I was then on a lot of media for free. So why wouldn't you invest your time and effort in following this strategy? Practice improves your performance. The more you talk about your topic of influence, the more you give your stories, the more you share those stories that resonate with the right listeners, the more you show up and have great conversations, the deeper they're going to go, the more vulnerable you're going to be, the braver and more courageous you're going to be, which allows you then to be more inspirational, more courageous, more fun, more entertaining, more relaxed. So practice improves your performance. Get out there, get on the smaller shows, get better, and start pitching to the bigger shows once you've got a solid number of interviews under your belt. The same as with anything. If you have a goal for how many podcasts you want to be on, make a plan as to how you're going to achieve it, and then take action to make it happen, the better your results are going to be. Create your topic of influence, get your media one sheet done, do your research. Know when you go on a show where you're going to drive people towards, have that call to action, that profit pathway really clear in your head, know how you're going to nurture them, know that you aren't just doing one interview, you are going to spread your message far and wide to the right people, to the right audiences by finding the right hosts and the right shows. And a final note is that you want to measure and track your success. What would successful podcast guesting look like for you? Is it however many people you are reaching? Is it how many people come into your email list through a particular call to action following a link that you have put out on a show? Is it that you are going to know that you've got success because of how often you go on shows? So decide what this looks like for you and decide how you are going to measure and track so that you can celebrate your steps along the way. So I hope that you have found this section of content useful. I hope that it inspires you to get out there and master this podcast guesting strategically, because when it's done right, it can build your business, build your income, build your profit, build you as that go-to expert, and help you have really powerful and useful connections, not only with hosts, but also with the listeners and the clients that you want to reach, so that you can have that impact on the world.